Welcome back to ILTV News. The United States has launched its 11th consecutive night of airstrikes against the Islamic Republic, signaling no let-up in a rapidly escalating conflict. As Washington expands its military campaign, the regime has continued its missile and drone attacks on U.S. targets in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan, while also threatening shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump is now suggesting the previously undeclared Pickaxe nuclear facility will be the next target. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the latest.
U.S. Central Command says the latest strikes lasted 75 minutes. CENTCOM assets targeted Iranian military operations centers, maritime capabilities, aircraft hangars, drone storage facilities, and military logistics infrastructure to further degrade Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, meanwhile, claims its continued missile and drone attacks against U.S. targets in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan, while also targeting shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. is reportedly considering proposals to step up the military campaign. President Trump announced that the United States will probably pretty soon strike Iran's Pickaxe mountain nuclear site amid reports that Tehran has moved thousands of uranium enrichment centrifuges into the underground complex.
We follow the material. That's where the action is. And we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon, and there's not a thing they can do about it. Normally I wouldn't say that. If I thought they could do something about it, I would never say that. But we'll be hitting that area pretty soon, and very heavily.
The threat comes as the president faces a critical phase in the conflict, with his administration seeking to increase pressure on Tehran and signal that further military escalation is coming, unless Iran proves they are serious about talks and agreements.
Unfortunately, so far, even though we have reached agreements, they have not kept their commitments. And as the president stated earlier today, I guess, today Washington time, yesterday our time here now, the problem we're having right now is that they're not serious about talks. If they're serious, we're serious. If they're not, then we will do what is necessary to protect that, our interest and also the interest of our allies.
Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly spoke with U.S. Secretary of State Rubio to coordinate on possible developments and align American and Israeli strategy. Israeli officials are reportedly concerned that any new military campaign involving Israel could be cut short by pressure from Washington, as in previous rounds of fighting. Officials stress there is no indication the United States has asked Israel to join its current campaign against Iran, but say Jerusalem is prepared for all possible scenarios.
The Trump administration is facing growing scrutiny over its strategy towards the Islamic Republic after another deadly missile attack on U.S. forces raised new questions about whether the campaign is achieving its objectives. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth faced sharp questioning on Capitol Hill as lawmakers pressed him to explain why the Islamic Republic still retains the ability to strike American troops despite 11 days of intensive U.S. airstrikes. Hegseth defended the operation, insisting the Islamic Republic's defense industrial base has been devastated, while warning that the regime still maintains hidden missile stockpiles and underground facilities built over decades as the U.S. continues its campaign.
Why are there missiles left to hit Jordan and result in the loss of life of our brave men and women?
As we stated from the beginning, the Iranian defense industrial base is effectively gone. But they do have underground facilities because they're the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, and they've spent 47 years trying to hide their missiles under mountains, just like their nuclear capabilities, because they would like to get a nuclear weapon to wield it against us.
Of the war to believe, because it's either over or it's not over. It's within 2 weeks or it's not 2 weeks. We have no missiles or we have missiles, and that consternation is why so many New Yorkers are perplexed, stressed out, and find this war to be incredibly unpopular because they don't understand the choices that the president's making. They don't agree with those choices.
I think your characterization of this incredible effort as a failure is reckless. And I think it's irresponsible. And I think it smears the sacrifice of the troops that are out there making on behalf of the American people to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Shame on you and others who call this a quagmire and a failure.
President Donald Trump has reportedly approved a landmark civil nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia without requiring Riyadh to normalize relations with Israel. Officials in Jerusalem are said to be concerned and disappointed. The 30-year agreement could allow Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium on its own soil while giving U.S. companies a major role in developing the kingdom's civilian nuclear program. Reports say the deal does not include earlier demands for stronger international inspections, raising fears of a regional nuclear arms race. For Israel, the agreement would mark a major shift in U.S. policy by separating Saudi nuclear cooperation from normalization with Jerusalem. Israeli officials reportedly view the move as a strategic setback that weakens Israel's leverage and influence in Washington. Israeli politicians already raising the alarm, saying any military nuclear program starts off as civilian, pointing at Iran's nuclear enrichment. The agreement has not yet been formally announced, but could be unveiled as early as today. President Trump's historic White House meeting with Lebanese President Youssef Ayoun was filled with promise, if not substance, as the American leader pledged support for Lebanon's elected leaders, while Ayoun committed to ending hostilities with Israel forever. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
U.S. President Donald Trump gave Lebanese President Youssef Ayoun a warm welcome at the White House in the first visit by a Lebanese president since 2009. Trump pledged continued U.S. support for Lebanon and authorized direct flights between the two nations. Trump added he would even be prepared to speak directly with Hezbollah if requested by the Lebanese government, as Washington continues to push to implement its Israel-Lebanon security framework.
I speak to Hezbollah, yeah. I speak to everybody. I'll speak to people that a lot of people think I shouldn't be speaking to, and things work out.
Mr. President,
I would say this, if the president wanted me to speak to Hezbollah, you know, he's lived with Hezbollah for a long time. And if the president wanted me to speak to Hezbollah, I would. You know, I would.
Ayoun declared that Lebanon is committed to ending hostilities with Israel forever and said his government is determined to disarm Hezbollah.
I think, Mr. President, this will be your legacy. Together, we'll be able to achieve this objective. It's about time for Lebanon and for the whole region to be stable and secure. And I know your vision is peace, your vision is stability, and I think my vision coincides with your vision. And together, I think we will be able to achieve and to score success in that regard.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. You have tremendous spirit on your side. You have people that love that country, and they're going to make it work.
We got to make it work.
The meeting came as the first U.S.-backed pilot security zone in southern Lebanon faced an early test. The IDF said it fired warning shots after Lebanese army troops crossed into an Israeli-held buffer zone outside the agreed-upon pilot area. The Lebanese forces withdrew without any casualties. For Israel, the promises made by Washington will ultimately be judged not by words, but by actions on the ground. Jerusalem remains deeply skeptical that the Lebanese government has the ability or the political will to fully disarm Hezbollah. Israel has made clear that any return of the Iran-backed terror group to southern Lebanon will trigger a military response, making the success of the U.S.-backed security plan a critical test for regional stability.
Well, now joining us is Jonathan Conricus, a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, is here to discuss whether the U.S. campaign against the Islamic Republic is changing the strategic balance in the Middle East or not, and what comes next for the state of Israel. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on. Now, after 11 consecutive nights of U.S. strikes, how much damage has actually been done to the regime's military and nuclear capabilities?
Well, shalom, Emily. Thanks for having me on. Always good to be back. So I think there are two significant things that we have to acknowledge. One of them you said, which is that, yes, the U.S. has been striking 11 consecutive nights, and the strikes have been focused on almost only military targets in the southern part of Iran, close to the Hormuz area, and some of the supporting infrastructure, logistics, communications, intel, etc., that supports the Iranian regime's ability to continue to fire missiles or to deploy boats towards international shipping. And that is indeed a big thing. That's no small thing. But, and this is the second thing, I think the underlying working assumption still holds that the U.S. hasn't yet crossed the Rubicon in terms of its willingness to engage in ground combat because of its reluctance to sustain casualties. And I think the U.S. is still on that side of the Rubicon. The Iranian regime sees that and understands that. And since both know that that is the situation, then the strikes that are being conducted by the US, I would contain them more as a tactical event and not really a strategic game-changing event. If and when the US will come to a different decision to actually put their assets closer, to be within striking range, to apply more pressure, to put boots on the ground on some of the various islands, or to take control over parts of the Iranian coastline, or to do other things that from a military perspective would be more meaningful, but also would be putting American service members in harm's way, that will be the game changer, which I think will have significant consequences for the region.
Well, President Trump is now openly threatening to strike the Pickaxe nuclear facility, one that has not been hit yet. What makes this site so significant, and what would be the strategic impact of taking it out if the United States is even able to? I mean, we're talking about centrifuges, the reported centrifuges buried very, very deep, deeper than some of the other nuclear sites like Natanz. Can the U.S. actually even deal with this?
Yeah, that is a very valid question to which there are different opinions, but I don't think that we have full visibility of all of the US military capabilities. And I think the president is very right to be speaking publicly about it. That's definitely something that we at FDD, at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, have been speaking a lot about, highlighting Pickaxe Mountain and highlighting the fact that the Iranian regime continues to aspire to keep their nuclear weapons program alive, despite that they claim outwardly that they're not in pursuit of nuclear weapons. But of course, their actions on the ground indicate exactly the opposite. And yes, it is a meaningful military target. I think that the US eventually, if it applied all of its capabilities or more of its capabilities, would be able to bring significant damage even to the deeply hidden and well-protected assets that are deep inside Pickaxe Mountain. And there's, as the saying goes, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's obviously the standoff measures, but then there's also other things that I think would be wise not to speak about just yet, that the US has in its arsenal that they could use in order to bring a significant blow to it. But, it's another iteration. The end calculus here, and I think you've tweeted about it, and I definitely have said so, as long as this Iranian regime is intact and it continues to oppress the Iranian population, they will prioritize military buildup, they will prioritize ballistic missiles, they will prioritize their attempts to achieve nuclear weapons, and they'll continue doing the things that they've been doing for 47 years. So if it's not Pickaxe Mountain, it'll be some other location that Israeli and American intel will learn about and then will guide US and Israeli efforts against. But really the core issue here is and remains the Iranian regime.
All right, well, we do have to leave it at that, but I want to thank you so much for joining us, as always, Jonathan Conricus of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies.
Thank you, Emily.
75 years ago, a bold idea helped build a nation. Since then, Israel Bonds has helped power growth, innovation, and resilience across Israel. Generation after generation, investors have turned values into action. Now, it's your turn to be a part of the next chapter. Celebrate 75 years of Israel Bonds. Invest today at israelbonds.com.
The IDF says it has eliminated several armed terrorists in a series of airstrikes across the Gaza Strip, including a senior Hamas commander involved in the October 7th massacre. The military says aircraft struck a group of armed terrorists in southern Gaza after troops identified them transferring weapons into a vehicle. According to the IDF, the gunmen, including Islamic Jihad operatives, were preparing for weapons attacks against Israeli forces. In a separate strike, the IDF says it eliminated Hamas cell commander Asma Kamel Shahadeh Abu Tim, who participated in the October 7th abductions of Nirit Cooper, Amiram Cooper, and Alexander Danzig from kibbutz Nir Oz. The military says he continued to direct terror operations throughout the war. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani is backtracking on his campaign promise to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu after discovering he has no authority to do so as a city mayor. Instead, Mamdani is now calling on the U.S. government to arrest Netanyahu over the International Criminal Court warrant issued against him. Responding to a Mamdani interview earlier this week, President Donald Trump said yesterday that Netanyahu will not be arrested when he travels to the United States. Netanyahu may travel to Washington in the coming days to attend the funeral of Senator Lindsey Graham and meet with President Trump. He also plans to attend the UN General Assembly in September. Since taking office, Mamdani has made at least 10 statements about Israel or conflicts involving Israel and 0 on other foreign countries or conflicts, despite the fact his role has nothing to do with U.S. foreign policy. Mamdani now admits that New York does not have the legal authority to carry out such an arrest, but urged the federal government to join the ICC and enforce the warrant.
As I've said, I agree with the ICC that Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested and tried for his crimes, as I do for anyone else charged by the ICC. My administration has reviewed every avenue available under applicable law to determine whether New York City could execute the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant if Benjamin Netanyahu came here. It is clear that we do not have the independent legal authority to enforce this warrant. The federal government, however, does, and I call on them to join the ICC and execute this warrant. And I want to be equally clear. Benjamin Netanyahu is not welcome in New York City, nor is any other war criminal at large.
Neither Israel nor the United States are party to the Rome Statute or the International Criminal Court, which is why both countries have rejected the court's jurisdiction and denounced the warrant as politically motivated.
Buying real estate in Israel from abroad requires experience, trust, and the right guidance. Aliyah.il is a trusted real estate company specializing in helping international buyers navigate the Israeli property market with clarity and confidence. You will work directly with Eliyahu Kleinman, a dedicated representative of Aliyah.il, who will personally manage each step of the process, from property search to final closing, ensuring everything is handled professionally and efficiently. From Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Ra'anana to Netanya, the right property is closer than it seems. Aliyah.il, trusted guidance every step of the way.
The United Kingdom has a new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham of the Labour Party, and his new government has many British Jews concerned. While Burnham has condemned anti-Semitism, many British Jews remain deeply concerned about his views on Israel. Burnham has apologized for Labour not calling for a ceasefire in Gaza sooner, and he's openly called for the UK to take a tougher approach towards Israel, all while continuing to back a Palestinian state. Now, all of this comes as anti-Semitism in Britain has surged since October 7th, leaving many British Jews feeling abandoned, particularly Jewish students on their own campuses. One of those students is Tali Smuts, president of Students Supporting Israel at King's College in London, who recently wrote in The Telegraph about the threats, harassment, and social isolation that she's faced as an openly Jewish student. Tali joins us now at ILTV. Tali, thank you so much for joining the broadcast today. To start, UK Prime Minister Burnham has been critical of Israel's war in Gaza and has called for even harsher approach to the relations with Israel. He's also been silent on the near-weekly hate marches against Israel and Jews in the UK. What is the feeling in the Jewish community right now? Do British Jews feel confident that his government will protect the Jewish community?
Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for having me. I will say that some Jews are hopeful, some Jews are worried. It's a very mixed feeling at the moment, and we're really hoping that he will lead a positive change, fighting anti-Semitism and calling out the hate marches, which unfortunately he has yet to do. He also used one of his main interviews before becoming Prime Minister to condemn the IDF and their actions, rather than calling out the reasons for such actions, which was obviously October 7th and the invasion of Hamas operatives and the killing and massacring of hundreds and thousands of Israelis. So it does leave lots of Jews worried about his work and how he will continue, but we do hope that he will continue to fight anti-Semitism. As Mayor of Manchester during the Heaton Park attack, he did take it very seriously, and the Mancunian Jewish community did feel very confident and supported by him. So I do hope that that will continue, and we will see that as now in his role in Prime Minister, he will take the opportunity to stand up for extremism, against extremism and anti-Semitism, and make sure that these hate marches are banned, and he protects the Jewish communities that he is now meant to look after.
Well, Well, in your recent Telegraph article, you described facing nearly 2 years of harassment, intimidation, social isolation at King's College because you are an openly Jewish student. What has that experience been like? And do you believe that the university is or has done enough to protect you and other Jewish students?
My experience has been pretty awful, I'll be honest. It's not been fun, but it has made me more confident about my identity and more proud of it, and I stand very openly with my identity as a proud Jewish student on campus. Have they protected us? Have they taken the relevant action? No. They have not been actually acting against the hate marches that are on campus, the encampments that were on campus, ensuring that Jewish students are safe. And they don't take this complaint seriously. And that is what has to change. Institutionally, they're too scared to take a stance because of the masses of pro-Palestinian voices that will argue against them if they do. And that's what's worrying. And it just leaves the Jewish students feeling like people don't care what actually happens to them and the attacks and the real visceral hatred that they face on campus.
You know, anti-Semitic incidents have reached record levels in the UK since October 7th. From what you've experienced, what you're seeing on campus, is the situation improving at all, or is it continuing to deteriorate?
I believe it's continuing to deteriorate, honestly, because the allowance of such hate marches and not treating anti-Semitism as the racism that it truly is furthering its cause, because it's giving it a justification. It's allowing it to continue and saying, this is okay, this is acceptable within our society. As you're showing, the stabbing in Golders Green, that's insane that a man walked down the high street of Golders Green and stabbed 2 Jewish men in the middle of broad daylight. And it was Shomrim, the Jewish police force, that actually tackled him down until the police were able to come and arrest him. But this is the reality that Jewish students, Jewish people, the Jewish communities are living in. Extra security, police constantly patrolling. It's insane that we are living in this day and age and have to be so worried about our safety. It feels like it's the 1930s.
Definitely disturbing situation for the UK Jewish community and many Jewish communities in Europe. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you for joining the broadcast. Surely we'll have you back sometime. Thank you, Tali.
Thank you so much.
President Isaac Herzog has said that he's been warned of various threats to the integrity of the upcoming Knesset elections, both internal and external. Herzog said he received the warning during a recent meeting with Shin Bet Director David Zini and Central Elections Committee Chairman Justice Noam Solberg. Herzog warned Israel's officials and leadership. He has also had a message to the Israeli people ahead of the Tisha B'Av fast that begins tonight, commemorating the destruction of the first and second temples in Jerusalem.
אני קורא לכל רשויות החוק לעמוד בנחרצות וביעילות כנגד איומים אלו. בעידן הרשתות החברתיות, הסכנות גדולות. על כולנו להיות נבונים, זהירים ואחראים בתוכן שאנחנו צורכים, ועל אחת כמה וכמה בתוכן שאנחנו מפיצים. אני קורא לכל עם ישראל בקול ברור, זכרו, בחירות אינן מלחמת אזרחים.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. And tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of 34 degrees or 94 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and keep up with us on social media. That's ILTV_Israel on all platforms. You can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.
I'm Deborah Klein, and you're watching ILTV News. But instead of just watching, you can now get the chance to access ILTV at its fullest capacity. Become a member on our ILTV YouTube channel and unlock insane benefits like priority comments in the chat room and even the chance to chat with me personally about anything you want. Register as a member or upgrade to an insider. But if you're really feeling fancy, you can subscribe as an ambassador.
Unlock ILTV's premium content and the chance for a special Q&A with not just me, but any of our ILTV staffers. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your full potential with the ILTV membership. Don't just watch the news, get behind the scenes, join the conversation, and become part of the ILTV family. Click join, and I'll be waiting for you.